Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the latest installment of the Jungle Roar podcast on the CLNS Media Network and powered by our good friends at Prize Picks and All Good Home Improvement. My pleasure to welcome back to the pod Geoff Hobson of Bengals.com. We want to recap the Bengals-Eagles preseason opener last Thursday night in Philadelphia, but more importantly, look ahead to what all of that means, that week one game in the preseason against the Eagles and training camp to this point. I think, Geoff, it's been an interesting training camp in terms of some of the competitions that we've been focusing on and some of the competitions coming into clearer focus. I think it's pretty obvious that Dylan Fairchild is going to be, barring injury, your starting left guard. At the right guard spot, it's Lucas Patrick getting a lot of the first team reps. Cody Ford is in that conversation as well. What were your impressions of that offensive line competition in preseason week number one?
Well, Burrow, thanks for having me on, Trags, by the way.
Of course.
It's good being on with you. Obviously Burrow didn't get touched. Back up, you would expect that would be that way against the Eagles backups, but they have, a lot of depth on their defensive line. So, I think Fairchild obviously showed up, graded well from everyone. Dan Pitcher to Pro Football Focus had him as an outstanding night. I think they given what happened in practice the last couple of days since the game, Cody Ford is back at a second-team tackle. And, he was the second-team right guard after Lucas Patrick. So Pitcher seemed pretty happy with the way Patrick played and what he's doing in practice. So I think as this thing begins, it's hard to take Cody Ford out of what he did so well last year, which is he played well in, three spots, four if you count
right.
tight end, So it would seem to me that they're really comfortable with him as a swing tackle, but we'll see how that plays out. Lucas Patrick has been here before, and that's how he played. He played like a guy who has been, an opening day starter on three different teams in the last 5 years.
Well, and I think what's notable here in this particular case with what the Bengals are doing with Cody Ford, I think, they want to have some insurance at the tackle spot, at the swing tackle spot, and they moved rookie Jalen Rivers inside on that second team unit that you mentioned next to Cody Ford, playing the right guard spot. So you move the rookie in from a swing tackle position possibly into the guard. Now, this is all because Dan Pitcher and Zach Taylor want to take a look at these players in different spots and also build up the depth along the offensive line. I would say that's kind of one interpretation of that, Butch.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think, the jury's kind of out on Rivers as an interior player. He certainly has all the athletic skills outside, and they want to see if he's big enough, to play inside. Because I think, then that would give you two guys who can play all four spots with, Cody Ford. I think that's what they're aiming at. With Rivers, I think projected one day to be in the, starting lineup as maybe a guard at some point, obviously, because they're pretty set at tackle. But, for the 2025 Bengals, to have guys like Ford and Rivers who can play four spots, I think they would feel, they'd feel pretty good about that. I think they just want to see a little bit more from Jalen inside.
I think so too. And injuries are going to happen, Butch. I think we know that. We can acknowledge that. And I think the one thing that I can give credit to the Bengals over the last couple of years, they have had players who they've been able to move around in part out of necessity along that offensive line. They want to make sure, every team wants to as well, wants to make sure they don't get caught shorthanded and don't have to scour the waiver wires or don't have to go too deep into the practice squad to bring somebody up.
To me, one of the great misnomers about this team nationally, and there's a lot of them, is
yes.
they don't do anything on the offensive line. Ever since Joe Burrow gets sacked in the Super Bowl, that's all they've done is seek to add to the offensive line, either drafting first-round picks or second-round picks or spending a lot of money in free agency in the first week of free agency. That's all they've done is devote time and money to it. So, I think they're just, they want to get a little bit more bang for their buck. And I think each year they've gotten better. It's not easy to play offensive line for this team. It's a pass first team. Hardest
No
thing
question.
in the league. It's the hardest thing in the league that is the pass block. So, I think they've gotten guys. I think, and I think the Fairchild pick and the Rivers pick really shows what type of lineman that they're now going. This is guys who can pass protect. There's no question that they were able. That was their strength coming out of college. So, to me, I think they've done a good job stocking and matching what they want to do offensively with the linemen they've got.
So I wrote this for CINCINNATI.com, kind of recapping what offensive coordinator Dan Picture had to say about the progress so far this camp along all things offense, but particularly the offensive line. And I looked up their run game. And I think another misnomer, even locally, is that the Bengals can't run the ball or won't run the ball. Right. Last year, do you know what the Bengals? I bet you do know.
I do because I read CLNS, so I know 4.1 if I'm not mistaken.
4.1 is correct, right on the money, Butch. That number surprised me, and that ranks 6th in the National Football League in terms of yards per carry. Now, looking back on Thursday night in Philadelphia, it was a good night for Chase Brown and the first team. I think all across the board.
He looked terrific. He looks terrific. He looks like 10 times the guy like he did last year.
5 carries, 23 yards, and I asked Dan Picture this on Sunday after practice. I said, what will it mean to this offense to get into second and short or second and manageable and third and short versus longer situations? And he said, that's what we're looking for in terms of grading the efficiency of the run game. It's not how much, but what position the offense is in when you're running the ball. And I thought that was a really in-depth answer by Dan Picture and kind of gives a reflection of how they view this running game. It's not how much they're going to run the ball, but when.
I mean, Pitcher's tremendous. Obviously, he gives great answers, and that was great. And if you ask a great question like that, Pitcher gives you a great answer. And I think and you alluded to this in your story, Trags. In the Burrow era, short yardage and goal line, they've struggled. So even though they have that 4.1 yard per carry, nobody remembers that. They're thinking about the. They're thinking about the 4th and 1, I think, against, or I know Zach Taylor does, the 4th and 1 against Philly, maybe, the 4th and 2 that turned that game. They didn't get it.
Yep.
I mean, there's a laundry list of short yardage plays that have turned games for them that they have not been able to convert. And so I think that's why people say, well, they don't run the ball well. It was because they think of them in the key moments, they've struggled to get that yard or two. But I think Pictures. I think they've attacked that. It's clear when we're watching it. While we watched that move that 99-yard drive, it wasn't Elway against Denver, but it was revealing in the sense that they had a lot of 3rd and 2s and 3rd and 1s. They made sure they made sure that they ran the ball. So I mean, I think Pitcher. To me, when Dan came in, you kind of sense a little bit of how they view how they want to use the running game. I think Dan's got I think maybe that's might have where he's had the most impact since he's got the OC job. And I think they went a step further this in the offseason when they, Chase Brown talked about this all spring about how they, tweaked it, and a more downhill. And, they get those 2 guards. I think there's, those 2 big, powerful guards, Fairchild, Patrick. Also, Cody is built like that, a lot more double teams. And so I just think, they've spent time on this thing, I mean, and it's going to be interesting. I mean, I just thought it looked really good in practice. And how the hell do you know? I mean, right? They're not.
You don't. I mean, but
there were holes. But there were holes there. And I thought Thursday, like you said, I thought Chase ran the ball well, and Taj didn't get a lot of room. But they ran the ball a lot.
They did. And again, looking back on the stats on Thursday night, in total, the team ran it 19 times for 57 yards, which comes out to 3 yards a crack.
Of course, they're not going to show. Of course, they're not going to show a lot, right? And
No.
Right? They're probably going to run the ball for show.
One
right?
thing you can evaluate, though, in the preseason, Butch, and I think you would agree, is how physical they are at the point of attack. Yeah. And I thought that first team offensive line was very physical at the point of attack. But again, we're going to have to wait and see how they line up against one of the best defensive lines in football, the Cleveland Browns, opening day, September 7th. Can they convert a 3rd and 2 at their own 44-yard line? That's what I want to know. And if they can do that, and maybe get 5 or 6 or 7 yards out of that carry, then I'm going to be like, okay, this is a different look. And I think that's what all Bengal fans want to see. Speaking with Butch Hobson of Bengals.com, want to tell you about Prize Picks, the best place to turn your sports knowledge into cold hard cash. With millions of members, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. On Prize Picks, you can mix and match player projections from different sports, combine your favorite basketball players with players, for instance, from football, baseball, hockey, esports, and much more. Prize Picks also invented the flex play. That means you can still cash out if your lineup is not perfect. And Butch, as we know, who's perfect? Not even the 2007 New England Patriots are perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. Download the app today and use the code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That is code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. I'm going to take a detour here and talk 2 things New England. First of all, you catch the Patriots preseason opener against the Washington Commanders?
I did not. Speak to me about it.
Okay, Mike Vrabel is going to have that team, I think, ready to play. I'm not going to say they're here to win the AFC East over the Buffalo Bills. I'm not going to go that far. Right. But I think they're going to be an entertaining team to watch. Drake May in his second year as NFL quarterback, I think he is going to be fascinating. I don't know what Stephon Diggs is going to do as a 31-year-old wide receiver. Pop Douglas, we'll see what he does. But I did watch them, and I watched Mike Vrabel along the sideline on Tom Brady's statue night, and I just think they're going to have an attitude about them that is going to make them a player in the AFC. That's what I think.
I think there's no question. Vrabel proved that at Tennessee.
Yep.
That he's gonna churn out teams are gonna win 8-9 games, And I think with Drake May, he'll probably win 8-9 games, And I think defensively,
they spent a lot of money, Butch. They spent a lot of money, $200 million in the offseason.
And they'll be competent. And they were not competent last year.
No.
And so I think, Vrabel gives them 8 wins. Can he, with a second-year quarterback, can he get the 9-10? Plus the division, I think, is, except for Buffalo, they could be in a hunt there for something. I mean,
I think so. And in this day and age of the National Football League, it's built for teams, if they get the right pieces in place, for a quick turnaround. We saw it last year with the Washington Commanders. I don't think there's anybody in the world, anyone, who would have thought the Washington Commanders would have beaten the Detroit Lions in Detroit first round of the playoffs and advanced to the NFC Championship, losing to the eventual Super Bowl champion Eagles. I don't think there's anybody who would have thought that about Washington. So I guess my rambling point here is anything is possible.
I mean, the Bengals were in that position in 2021, right? Nobody picked that team to but again, you got it's all about the quarterback, right? And,
it is.
I guess they thought Drake May was the next Josh Allen, I guess. So maybe he can run him in. Maybe he can run him into a split with Buffalo, and they sweep Miami and the Jets.
Are the Red Sox your Carmine Hose, are they going to hold on for a playoff spot or even challenge for the division? Toronto's going to be a tough nut to crack there.
Yeah.
But.
Yeah. If the one, they should have, I think clearly they could make the wild card. And I think if they had got the kid who beat them yesterday, Cease, if they could have somehow traded
Dylan
for him,
Cease. Yep.
that might have been I just think they're an arm or two short in the starting rotation, and it's, I just don't think, I don't know if they got the legs to get past the Jays, but I wouldn't put it past them though. I mean, it's a streaky team, they can, they're very, they get streaky players. I mean, guys like Trevor Story, he goes for a month, Willie Abreu's like that too, hit for a month, so if these guys go into September and, and they're due for a streak, and Raphael's like that too. My two guys, Raphael and Abreu, they could carry it, when they get hot. So, but will they? I mean, that's why you need pitching and defense, I think their defense is a little better. I think their defense is good enough to win the division, but, they got to get Naves back, but, I just don't know if they got the horses. How many times have Red Sox said that in the last 100 years?
I'm going to move back to football because I'm sure our Bengal fans can appreciate your heritage and your loyalty to the Red Sox. But let's talk about someone who was honored before Sunday's practice, and you have this story up on Bengals.com. Al Golden, he received the Frank Broyles Award for last year's top assistant coach in all of college football. I thought that was a nice moment before the game, before the practice on Sunday to honor Al Golden. What did you think?
Yeah, it was nice. They had the Broyles family in here, his daughter and his granddaughter, and they do a lot of great work with Alzheimer's. They both their parents passed. It's unbelievable. Frank Broyles his wife was diagnosed and died of Alzheimer's, and he put so much time and energy into that, and then he passed from the disease himself. So
wow,
that was that was interesting to hear their family story. And I think that Al, I think, is such a big. But I've told you this, Trags, ever since he became the coordinator. That's their big free agent move. That was their big free agent move. I mean, I think he's going to have a lot of impact. I think he's going to have a lot of impact, not just on the defense, but on the culture of the team as well.
So that's interesting you say that. Did you start to see hints of that on Thursday night, how this defense is going to be different? Because, on the outside, a lot of fans are panicking. Oh, here, the same old Bengals defense that can't cover, can't tackle. Guys are running open, first big run of the game, 38 yards by Will Shipley. And where was, you could have driven a tractor trailer through the gap. Have you seen enough to say that this Al Golden defense is going to be the way it plays, the way it attacks the ball, and we heard that expression a lot this offseason, attacking the ball, it's going to be significantly different?
I do think that. Although I must say, yes, the opener was a little bit alarming in that it looked an awful lot like 24. But I mean, I think you've seen enough in practice. I think. Also, too, the corners I just don't expect that. The most surprising thing, I thought they got decent play from their front, except for the 38-yard, gash there, and there could be reasons for that. I thought the front played okay. I thought the linebackers played all right, but it was the thing that was surprising was the corners, just how well they didn't play after the very competitive camp with Burrow and the best receiving tandem in the league. I mean, it didn't look like they were going to do that. So, I don't think that's going to, happen very often. But I think, you can't just look at one game and say, well, here we go again. I think what Al's doing there is, it's a new defense, So I think there's going to be hiccups because you've got a new system out there. And, you didn't have Dax Hill and Cam Taylor-Britt playing a corner too. And Demetrius Knight is a rookie, there's going to be hiccups. Shamar Stewart is a rookie. There's going to be hiccups. So, and I think we'll see him more, obviously, in the starting lineup Stewart on,
What excited you the most about watching Shamar Stewart on Thursday night? I thought he was terrific for a rookie who missed all of OTAs in terms of practice being on the field, well documented, missed the mini camp, and to see him perform the way he did Thursday night, I think there's a lot of reason to think that he can be an impact rookie defensively.
Yeah, I think the guy's a handful. I mean, I think I think his toughest competition so far has been those two big tackles, Orlando Brown and Mims. He just didn't see those guys in college, but and I think that he'll need time to adjust to that. But other than that, I mean, this guy is he's always around the ball. He lines up 3-4 different spots every practice, and he's a very competitive guy. I mean, he's clearly, to me, that's what sticks out. Trags is his entire game is. He looks like a first-round pick is supposed to look like.
Yes.
And that is, I think, happening. Now there's going to be, he's got a load of learning to do, obviously. But I mean, this guy's looks the part. It's going to be interesting to see him get the. I think, obviously, he's practiced a lot with the first team since the Philly game, so I would imagine he'll get the call early and often against the Commanders.
So. In watching that game, the other thing that sticks out to me, and Geno Stone left after 3 plays with a hamstring tightness and soreness. So he's going to be week to week per Zach Taylor. They don't believe it's going to be a serious issue. So I'm not here to say he's not going to start the regular season.
Right.
But it does bring up an alarm bell for me, or ring an alarm bell for me, in one of the issues that I thought this team had going into training camp, and that was depth at the safety spot.
Yeah.
We're going to get a lot of looks now at Dejon Anthony. We're going to get a lot of look at Tyson Anderson, who is a key player on special teams. I think most Bengal fans, and you certainly, Butch, this, how important he is to Darren Simmons' unit.
Right.
But the Bengals need to find some answers at safety position, and they need to find some production. I also want to get your thoughts on Jordan Battle so far this camp.
Yeah, I think, there's a reason they didn't go out and get people. I think to me that was maybe one of the surprises of the offseason was they didn't add a veteran safety. They didn't draft one, which told me that Al thinks those two guys, Geno Stone and Jordan Battle, are what he wants out there. I think actually Battle's had Battle's had a good camp. I think Stone's playing better than he did last camp. I think Stone fit whatever Al's doing. I think Stone fits that. And I think that so does Jordan. But, I think the question is after that, what if one of like Geno goes down?
Right.
Can they get enough out of Tyson and Dejon? And you've seen what happened. I mean, a guy like PJ Jules, who was on the practice squad all last year, an undrafted guy, he's suddenly playing with a first team. Why? Because he makes plays, and I think they're looking for Tyson, Dejon, some of these guys maybe to come up with a play or two. And it's, they got high regard for both guys, Tyson and Dejon. I mean, Dejon was, playing early and often as a rookie before, they took him out of there. But I think that, they're looking for some production. And I think, although I certainly think Tyson is certainly is here as certainly if he's not a special teams captain, then I guess Warren Burks is. But, Tyson's everything you want on and off the field. And I think Dejon is a guy who's got some versatility at some point down the road that he can play a bunch of different positions back there. But, it's with Geno out, it does, kind of say, some of these guys got to – and I think Jordan Kovacs told me after the practice where they put in PJ was, the guys in the second level there, the safety, somebody's got to take the bull by the horns. Well, PJ Jules did. So let's see love to see him do something on Monday night. He's a guy – all he does is he just works hard. Here he is.
Great stories, and you want to see these great stories turn into great producers for the team. I mean, it's one thing to talk to PJ Jules after the first preseason game, and it's a great story. But Bengal fans want to know, could PJ Jules, if if he were pressed into service, could he be serviceable? Could he be productive? Could he be capable of preventing big plays down the field? And that's where, I think what you're asked, the bare minimum of what you're asking a safety to be in the National Football League these days is not get beat over the top, not give up the 40 to 50 yard player, running open down the field.
Right.
And I think
which
that's
killed him which has killed him the last 2 years, right? Yeah.
And that's what you've got to, that's the baseline, okay?
Right.
There's a lot more to the position, and I totally understand that. But that's the baseline.
Yeah.
And could PJ Jules step into that spot? Could Dejon Anthony step into that spot? And I've said this multiple times in the offseason, Butch. If Dejon Anthony is a second later, or half a tick later to that pass breakup on 4th and 16 in Kansas City, I think the narrative of his season is totally different.
And the Bengals.
Oh, totally. Yeah, right. I mean, they win the game. They make the playoffs.
Right.
They have a win over the defending Super Bowl champion on the road in week number 2. The whole narrative, you're right. Not only the whole narrative of Dejon Anthony is different, the narrative of the Bengals is different. Yeah. And I'm willing to give Dejon certainly that second chance, but I think the Bengals want to see more from Dejon Anthony in terms of his responsibilities all over the secondary.
Yeah, I mean, remember last year, as a rookie, he was all over the place, right? He picked Burrow 2 or 3 times, right? So,
right.
And PJ came up, it's like what Kovacs said, I think right after PJ made the interception of Browning, boom, he got promoted to the first team. So right in practice, they only do that on battlefields. So, it's like Jordan said, you make a play, you get rewarded. So we'll see what happens. We'll find out more. With Geno I doubt Geno will play in Washington, right? If he's week to week. So.
Oh no, yeah, I think Zach Taylor all but ruled that.
So
out,
we'll see all those guys. We'll see all 3. We'll see Tyson. We'll see Dejon. Jordan will. I don't know how much Jordan will play, but there'll be a lot of. We'll see a lot of Tyson and PJ and Dejon. So.
I know a lot of fans are wondering what's the latest with Jermaine Burton. And I think the issue here with Jermaine is, and I thought Dan Picture, as he always does, answered it with the proper perspective. And that is, you want to see consistency, whether that's running the right route, whether it's catching a pass over the middle properly, or it's just showing up to practice every day. You want to see consistency from Jermaine Burton. And when he doesn't show up, or let me rephrase that, when he's not on the field for practice on Sunday morning after a late afternoon, pretty hot practice, as I wrote on CLNSCincy.com, eyebrows are raised and suspicions go up. And I think before we jump to any conclusions, the best thing that can happen for Jermaine Burton is get back on the field as soon as you can, and assuming there's no other underlying issues there, get back on the field and produce. And the official statement from the team after practice on Sunday was it's an undisclosed injury. He's day-to-day. Do you have any thoughts to add to that, Butch, on Jermaine Burton?
Just what Darren Simmons talked about, I think he talked about this Saturday after practice, was he didn't. Now the punt return was very impressive, the 32-yard punt return.
But
and he was too deep. He ran up and he caught it.
Right.
But he talked about the kick return. The kick return before that,
the 24-yarder.
Right. He took a shot. He took a shot. But the guy who he hit had to be taken off the field. And I think that was Darren's point, was just how physical he is. He is a violent runner. He is. We've seen it when he catches the ball, but when he returns, and that was because everybody's talking about the punt return, but Darren was talking about the kick return, which was just he laid a guy out. So just with his running style. So I think we're talking about a guy who is going to be. I think he's going to be going to be a key kick return guy for them, I think.
Yeah, and as I've said, everybody has said, just get on the field. Just show up. I think his teammates have said this. The coaches have said this. They want to see consistency, whether that's doing the right thing on the field or showing up to meetings, and that's We'll leave it at that because at this point, we really don't know much more than that. Speaking with Butch Hobson, that would be Geoff Hobson, also known as Geoff Hobson.
But Trags, as you know,
yeah,
which his real name is Clell. So you can call me Clell,
I do know
too.
that.
Yeah, you can call me Clell, too, if you want.
Clell Hobson of Bengals.com. I want to tell everybody about All Good Home Improvement. All Good has been helping homeowners for 32 years. When looking for a home improvement company, the numero uno quality they are looking for is trust. For the last 32 years, All Good has been trusted to help homeowners replace their windows, install new vinyl siding, install new gutters, and of course, professionally install a new roof. All Good offers interest-free financing with payment starting at just $99 a month and no money down. And of course, all of All Good's products are professionally installed and backed by both a material and labor warranty. For more details and to schedule a free in-home consultation, simply call 513-247-2900. That's 513-247-2900. 2900, or as always, you can go to their website, myallgoodhome.com. We're going to wrap things up here with Geoff Hobson of Bengals.com. And as the Bengals go through this week, Geoff, they have the unique opportunity to have an extended week of practice, 4 days of practice if we're counting, with Tuesday, Wednesday, day off Thursday, Friday, Saturday, travel Sunday, game Monday night in Washington. What are the biggest things that Zach Taylor can accomplish in this final week of practice leading up to game number 2 of the preseason?
Yeah, it sounds like they're going to continue to tinker with that offensive line, use a couple different combinations. I think, trying to get Shamar Stewart in kind of integrated into that first group. I think, taking a look at that safety spot. But, I think also, too, just, he's also got to make sure that he doesn't overdo it either, with those. And he does a great job of that. I think they really have a good balance of going hard and knowing when to pull it back. But, it sounds like they're going to go hard up until, probably, Friday they might begin to pull it back. So like he was talking about, I think, there's like 6 practices between now and the Indy game, the finale next week. And so it seems to me like they're going to take working on the conditioning. I think we'll probably see more move the ball drills, probably more 99-yard drives, stuff like that. I think also too seeing different combinations. They got to start making boom, all of a sudden we're here. You got to start making roster calls. Who's the ninth O lineman? Are they going to go with 10 D linemen or 10 DBs? And this is now, the time, who's going to be the 5th linebacker? So I think we're going to slowly see those guys are going to be taking over the field. And, when that first club exits, Monday night, and who knows, maybe they play the whole half. I probably doubt that, but maybe they go into the second quarter. But when they exit. We won't see them until Cleveland.
No,
and that's when you're going to see, the Joe Giles Harrises and the.
So I was going to ask you. I'm going to bring up 2 players that have caught my eye for different reasons. Joe Giles Harris, he popped pretty good with the interception, almost a pick 6, but he was downed at the 35 or whatever it was. Joe Giles Harris. And Howard Cross, the third, the defensive tackle out of Notre Dame, got some first-team reps at the end of practice on Sunday on the defensive line. I just think that those 2 names to me are very fascinating for where they may fit in the plans for the Bengals back end of the roster.
Yeah, the linebacker thing is really interesting because you get 2 guys. I don't know if they're going for the same spot or not, but Giles Harris, who's a newcomer to the Bengals, but he's been around the league a little bit. They really like his experience and his athleticism, like Zach Taylor said, smart guy. Same thing with Shaka Hayward, who's been around. Played some really good snaps down the stretch last year. Both Vinny Ray Award winners. They were the top linebacker at Duke. I think I think Joe said he's won the Vinny Ray Award 3 times. Shaka won it twice. And I got to talk to Vinny the other day at practice. I'm going to write that story today.
Good.
Because kind of his take on it. Because Vinny was, he was a guy grinding for a roster spot. He's been here before, and it's interesting. Joe said that, I've been hearing for years what Vinny Ray did, and you didn't do it like Vinny Ray did. And he goes, now I'm finally here on the team with them. So, and Cross is interesting. Cross, of course, comes from Notre Dame with Al Golden.
Yep.
And, he's been around the league. He's he's the son of longtime Giants tight end Howard Cross, who's the Giants analyst now, radio analyst, I believe. So, that's an interesting spot because what I think the 4D tackles seem like that's pretty penciled in. McKinley Jackson and Chris Jenkins Jr. are having really good camps. With BJ Hill out, they've really played. I think they expect BJ to be back in plenty of time for Cleveland. But in his absence, McKinley and Chris have really played well. Slayton, I think, has been as advertised.
I think the defensive line, I'm going to interrupt here. Yeah. I think the defensive line has a sneaky chance to be one of the strengths of this team. I really do.
Yeah. I know, and I'm not sure how sneaky, because I think Joseph Osai, when he plays, he produces. Joe, look at his numbers. And I think, having Cam Sample back is huge. I think that's nobody really talks about that much, but he can play both spots. So, but I think, there's another guy I think they like, is Eric Gregory. I think they really, the free agent hasn't gotten a hell of a lot of snaps, but I think, whereas Cross is not a physical specimen, but he's a real grinder and he's really smart and he plays hard. He's got the pedigree. And Eric Gregory comes from a program, not as ballyhooed, but, he had a fine college career. He's got the NFL body, So it's an interesting battle there between 2 rookies who I think they're high on both those guys.
What else you got working on Bengals.com before I let you go, Butch?
Well, that's about it. You know how it is these days, Trags, the dog days. You're just trying to get from one day to the next. But we got a little trying to work on a few features and spent some time with folks today. So you know how it is. You're trying to balance the everyday stuff with maybe get a feature or 2, roll it out, So that's what I'm rolling on. I'm working on a couple of long reads for when we start playing preseason games. We got that long stretch with the
2 weeks.
Season. Yeah. So hope to have some long reads there, Trags.
All right. We'll look for that on Bengals.com. Geoff, you know how much I appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to grace us with your presence on the Jungle Roar Pod. You know that, right?
Trags, I appreciate it. I do know that, and I appreciate it because you're a guy that grinds. You're a grinder.
Yeah, grinders are appreciated.
Yeah, we appreciate that. We also, you're a Boston grinder.
Well, there is that part of my background. There's no question. That's why I brought it up in the middle of the podcast. I'm sure people are like, will you get back to the Bengals already? We want to hear about the Bengals. We want to hear about this isn't a CLNS Patriots podcast. It's CLNS Cincy talking Bengals.
Tom Caron just had his 30th year on this one.
Yeah, I did see that.
Yeah,
and I've been watching a lot of Sox.
Yeah, it's
on Nesson.
The lovely Anita got me that MLB package. It's the greatest.
I swear by it.
The greatest gift anyone ever gave me.
If I have insomnia, you do know that I come home at night from either after a Reds game or some Bengals thing when they're practicing in the afternoon or a game at night. I turn that on and I turn on Nesson. Always turn on Nesson because it takes me back in time, if you will. I'm very, 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 very happy to be in Cincinnati, my hometown now.
Sure.
But don't get me wrong, but it's interesting to go back in time and
it is. I feel
reconnect.
Like it's one of the reasons I turn on the Red Sox. Every night you kind of get a little connection to Framingham, Massachusetts.
Indeed, or Sudbury in my case. All right, he's Geoff Hobson. My name is Mike Petralia. I want to thank all of our people who help get this podcast on the air or on the internet, if you will. That would, of course, be All Good Home Improvement and Prize Picks and the great team at CLNS Media. For Geoff Hobson at Bengals.com, I'm Mike Petralia Trags. Until next time, keep that jungle roaring.